Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Tracker, Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Had a lot of misconceptions and thinking there were going to be more twists to this. I mean, the episode didn't fully go the way I thought it was. Obviously, we opened with Noah on the run from something or somebody, but then you kind of think like, oh, maybe it has something to do with the academy, but it kind of doesn't. I guess it's meant to be a red herring in the episode because you're like, is there something shady going on here? Because they're not telling Erica, Noah's mom, that like he went missing, but they're trying to like the headmaster, the person who runs the place, the actor who plays Weatherby in Riverdale. There was something else I saw him in super recently, and I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but I distinctly remember talking about, oh, I know him as Weatherby. I just don't remember what it was. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. But either way, like there are certain things like him, Tom Ritter, like I didn't trust that dude. I was like, him popping up, I'm like, him offering to help, I'm like, are you mixed up in this and you're just trying to cover your tracks? But it's like, oh no, Tom just turns out to be a really good dude. I don't know, man. I always feel bad when I'm suspicious of a character, but it's just like certain things about I can't explain it. I just had this gut feeling like, oh, is Tom going to be a bad guy? I felt weird when he was out there in the woods with Culture. I was like, oh man, it kind of gives me a weird feeling. But it turns out, no, he was a good dude the entire time. I was like, oh wow. And once again, the Academy had no. I mean, yeah, it had some. And I think they set up the red herring to make you seem like there's some off here because they didn't really let Erica know. They're just like, yeah, your son's fine. It's like, well, actually, he's been gone for like a day or whatever. But it turns out some of the students that go to this place are have had drug-related issues. Noah is one of those people. In fact, he actually had a relapse, and now it's his mom's finding out like what he relapsed like 4 months ago. Why didn't anyone tell me? It's like they kept a lot of that information private. I guess for the most part, it's like we don't want to stress the people even more. Like, yes, we put you through your paces here. It's about learning to be self-sufficient and stuff like that. In fact, Culture obviously sees a lot of parallels with this place. I think to some extent, he says it later on at the end of the episode of how he misjudges place, but I think it's also because of his own upbringing. He views it a certain way, because it's like, when you look, I mean, he says the place is like a prison because all the cameras, all the fences, but it also makes you wonder, is he projecting a little bit because he was kind of in a prison himself with his sister, his dad, and his mom, and his brother, like just kind of out there off the grid. I'm sure like this type of setup kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, considering like, it's foundation of your childhood and stuff. So I can understand Culture having like a bad taste in his mouth about this particular place, and it seemed like they weren't above board. They were trying to quickly kick him out of the place, even though like Erica it was actually Rini who brought him on board, because actually Rini and Erica are tight. They never expressly said that she's a godmother, but she, like, what she kind of talks about, like, she was one of the first people to hold Noah, and she's like, oh, I taught Erica kind of how to soothe them and stuff like that, which I thought was interesting. I was like, she gave off like godmother energy without them ever expressly saying like she's a godmother, Noah's godmom or something like that. But it's interesting, just kind of knowing that was Coulter's introduction into this case, being through Rini. So, but obviously we find out Coulter ends up finding out that Noah has a girlfriend, and obviously he went off with Zeke, because like one of the students like tried to cover, being like, yeah, last time I saw him was at the library, but it's like him and Zeke went off together. They were talking about sneaking off, and apparently Noah looked scared. So initially the thought is like, oh, did Zeke kidnap Noah? But then we find out, nah, man, Zeke was once again, just like I doubted Tom, they kind of doubted Zeke, but it turns out, nah, man, Zeke was a good guy, because it turns out Noah does have a girlfriend. Her name's Lisa, and it turns out, and this is where I was talking about before, where like the story went a direction I wasn't expecting. Like I said, I thought like it had to do some shadiness at the facility he was at, but it's like, no. It turns out Lisa has an abusive boyfriend named Ray. Basically, she's in the same boat as Noah. Like, they both met at the academy, but she left like last semester or whatever. So, but they still keep in touch through it whenever he's able to get a phone or whenever he sneaks off campus. And it turns out Lisa's ex, Ray, was actually her dealer, but they hooked up, but it was never really like a real relationship. And the moment she got clean, she cut him off. He didn't appreciate that, so he got very abusive. Well, he attacked her. And so she ended up telling Noah this, and Noah wanted to kind of make Ray leave her alone. And she's kind of blaming herself. Like, if I kept this to myself, if I'd been quiet, then none of this would happen. Maybe Noah wouldn't be mixed up in what he's in now. It's like my fault. And Coulter trying to make her feel better. It's like, no, this isn't on you. The bad guy in this situation is Ray, so don't take any of this upon yourself. But it's like, yeah, that's like... this all stems from Noah, finding out someone he cares about is her. And Zeke, they said that Zeke is a good guy at that place too. So he wanted to help out Noah. In fact, he helped sneak him out. They confronted Ray. But the problem is Ray got so wild and crazy that he chased after him. In fact, this kind of ties into what I was thinking about with Tom, with Ritter. I thought he and Ray had some... Because I'm like, why did Ray fly off the handle like that? To be fair, it's like the dude is a drug dealer. He probably also gets high off in his own supply. Even if he doesn't get high off his own supply, there's a good chance. Not always, but there's some chance of overlap. If you're a drug dealer, you might also get high. Just like a certain Jesse Pinkman was in that same capacity. Once again, got high off in his own supply a lot of times, but. That's where I kind of was thinking oh, could Tom be part of this? And there's something a little more at play here. Is he in business? Because initially I was like, why would Ray go so above and beyond? Well, it's because he's crazy. I think that's all there is to it. And then when he ended up running Zeke off the road, ended up shooting him and stuff, Ray knew well, I have to kill them now. After I've gone this far, there's no just walking away, because they were already threatening him, if you get near Lisa again, we'll tell the police about you or drug dealing and stuff. And he's already been to jail. He's got a record, pretty decent length record, so he wasn't about to go back to jail. So it's I've already gone this far. If I let you live, it's going to blow back in my face, so I'm tracking you down. He literally spent an entire time in the woods trying to find them. Sadly, Zeke ended up, succumbing to his wounds, because it's interesting, when you look, he ended up stumbling out just as Coulter got there. So I don't know if Zeke was wandering on his own or was he unconscious for a good chunk of time. But it's not until he came out of the woods and ran into Coulter, because he could have just been lost out there, just stumbling, wounded, and ended up sadly dying. I was like, yeah, man, that sucks. A good guy, Zeke died. And obviously... Noah was out there on his own, but luckily, because of everything at that facility, he was able to, it kept him alive that entire time, and he was able to avoid Ray. And obviously, Ray isn't, that's why Ray was, in a way, kind of worse off than Noah was, because he was, walking around the woods, probably dehydrated himself. Probably, who knows if he's high or not, but even if he wasn't high, he's disorientated. He's not in his right mind at all. He already wasn't, but it's once again worse because he's so adamant about trying to get Noah. But luckily, Coulter and Tom, they ended up splitting up. Once again, it kept giving me weird feelings at the time, but yeah, they split up, and Tom luckily ended up getting... He said he got a few off. Doesn't seem like any of them necessarily hit Ray, and Tom got hit, but luckily Ray's just so focused on, I got to get away, I got to find Noah, so... And luckily, they didn't have to kill Ray. All Coulter did was shoot him once, and then, pistol whipped him, or, just punched him and knocked him out, so... Luckily, it was all resolved. Sadly, Steve died. Much like Lisa had guilt about Noah's involvement, Noah had guilt about Zeke's, but it's no, man, you were just trying to do the right thing, and doing what you did take a lot of bravery to stand up to a bully like that. You were just doing the right thing. Once again, Ray's the bad guy. He's the sociopath that went off crazy, half-cocked, and killed somebody, for nothing. But at the end of it all, it's resolved nicely, and obviously Lisa and Kira got to meet each other, so it's interesting too, because we touch on it a little bit this episode, but Kira and her ex, his dad, are divorced. In fact, he's the one that kind of really pushed for Noah to go to this place, but now Kira's I'm never going to let you out of my sight again. So she probably wanted him out of this place, but this place at the end did do him some good. If it wasn't for the training at this place, he wouldn't have survived out there on his own the way he did. So it does have its benefits. But I just think it's interesting, like, his dad wasn't involved in this episode. Like, we just hear the references of they're divorced and stuff like that, but I'm wondering, like, is he just in a different state? Is that what that is, or what? It was also cute, too, like, him and his mom have this, like, matching... particularly, it's like a almost like a watch or something, but it's like a very specific knot or whatever. They have matching ones, and which is kind of like a cute bond, especially because they showed that at the beginning when Noah was kind of focusing on that. I think that was something kind of for him to focus on, like, okay, I got to survive, got to keep thinking about my mom to kind of calm myself down. But yeah, I mean, like I said, at the end, Lisa and his mom finally get to meet. Because his mom had no idea about Lisa at all, but it's like, oh, you guys met. There's some good that came out of this situation, I guess. And also, wasn't just Kira that was worried about Noah. We also had Rini being like, are you okay? He's like, whoa, were you worried about me? She's like, what? No. He's like, no, it seemed like you were worried about me. Just a little bit, you know? I love that how he was able to convince Noah how he knew Rini. It's like, oh yeah, like, she's smart and beautiful, refuses to ever think that she's wrong and she has to be right all the time. And I love just in that moment Noah had put the gun down. Yeah, that's Rini, all right. Even later on, when when Coulter was talking to, like, the principal of this campus thing or whatever, he was apologizing, like, hey, I misjudged this place. And the guy's like, hey, I'm sorry, I misjudged you too. But Rini was like, wow, you admitting you're wrong. Wow, I'm impressed. It's like, it's funny considering, like, he would kind of say that you would be in that same boat. But once again, I think it's just Coulter brought a lot of his own prejudice against this place because of his own childhood. Like I said, for the most part, everything kind of got resolved nicely, except for, like, like I said, the Zeke of it all. That really sucks. Once again, that's just kind of, like, really depressing to know that angle to, like, oh, poor Zeke. But for the rest of it, at least, there is that it's a bittersweet ending for the most part. It's good for the most part, except for the Zeke angle of it. But yeah, I'm interested to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with a lot of this. Once again, we're slowly dripping out the whole culture of storyline, and I think it's so interesting because we haven't fully touched on that yet. Now maybe in the next coming episodes we'll kind of dive deeper into that element. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us going forward with everything. See what the next story beat is, like what the next thing that Coulter gets mixed up in, and how much of his own personal life bleeds into it with the overarching story of the show. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.